Hey guys, I hope everyone is doing well today. So this video will be the second half of the 500 subscriber Q&A. Rafi won't be joining me today, but we are busy sort of preparing for another interview for you guys next week with another really great expert in the field. And so I think you guys will all really enjoy that. So for today, it'll just be me answering the second half of the subscriber questions. All right. So the first question is from Chad H. And he writes, "Hey guys, love your channel. Want to know your thoughts. Recently invested into all the ultra rare EX hollows from Crystal Guardians. Got a couple PSA 10 low pops and nines. Smart move? Question mark. I plan on sitting on them for a while. Just want to know your guys' thoughts. If you think the set will become more valuable in time." So generally, I don't. I certainly don't want to make any, promises or too strong of bold predictions on like specific sets on specific cards. I think the EX sets in general. I know that this set has fairly low pops in it. It's not like the Power Keeper set or those sets that have a lot more pop, or the Fire red leaf green set, which has a little bit more in the pop, particularly the birds. Some of these do have really low pops. I think that the lower pop ones with the cooler art and the cooler Pokemon are gonna do the best over time. I think the issue. I could talk a little bit about what the positives of these EX sets are and the issue with these EX sets, and I'll go into detail longer, in videos where we talk about these specific sets. But basically, what really helps these sets is that they're going to have a pretty low amount of them in the world. There aren't going to be many of those booster boxes left, and the value is really not there in opening them. So it's unlikely that there's going to be a lot more mint supply on the market, because the expected value from these boxes doesn't get anywhere close to the price of the boxes doesn't get anywhere close to the expected value of the prices. So they're likely, there isn't very much incentive to open the boxes. So you're probably not going to see too much increases in these popularity ports. The reason there aren't that many of these boxes was because Pokemon wasn't that popular, and that leads us into sort of the negative of these cards, is that people don't have childhood. Most people don't have that much of a childhood connection to these cards compared to like the Wizards of the Coast cards. And so because of that lack of sort of maybe nostalgia and connection, you're not going to have as many people interested in these cards as you will the Wizards of the Coast, very likely. However, I do think that we've seen a lot of movement on these cards. I think they're really good looking cards, and they are of the same Pokemon that were in some of the same Pokemon that were in the Wizards of the Coast. And I think that because people in this hobby get so attached to the Pokemon and not necessarily just the specific card, that is something that's really strong with Pokemon cards in general, and why so many sets do well, and why so many collectors who never collected a specific set when they were a kid still want that set in as adult, because it has that Pokemon that they do feel that nostalgia and connection to. So they see that Charizard card, in the Fire Red Leaf Green, for example, they see that, and even though they're not, as an adult, they're not familiar with that card, they never saw that card before, they have a connection to it because they have a connection to that Pokemon from Wizards of the Coast, if that makes sense. And you'll see that throughout those sets, that it keeps that connection strong. So overall, I do think that those sets clearly have value. They've been going up, and whether or not now is a good time to buy, and how much they're going to go up in the future is hard to say. But those are factors to keep in mind when you're thinking about buying those sets. So Jason asks, what are your thoughts of Japanese secret rare supporter cards? Cards like Lily sell for hundreds. Promos are very popular and expensive. For example, here comes Team Rocket, Alola Friends, etc. What do you think the market will look like for these kinds of cards long term, 5, 10, 15 years? So I don't really have much of experience with these cards. I don't own any of these cards, and I haven't the specific cards you mentioned, that is. And I know that like the Team Rocket one came from that Team Rocket box, which is, costs a fortune. And those cards in PSA 10, I think, can go for like a couple $1,000s right now. Things like that. Very expensive. People really like it. People love that sealed box, that case. So I don't feel like I'm an expert on those, honestly. I don't really watch the market for them. They're niche. I think that they're niche items. I think that my instinct would be they're going to be the value of those cards will be connected to two things. Certainly the rarity and scarcity of those items makes them collectible, and that's why people pay a lot for them. But the other huge part is the coolness of the art. So, for example, I think part of why those Team Rocket ones did so well was because people love Team Rocket, and because like the Giovanni card and that, the cards from that case were so cool looking. And so there's that subjective element driving them. It wasn't just the rarity and the scarcity. So I think when those types of things come out, I think if the art is really, really cool, those will do a lot better in the long run. And those are sort of, common sense things. I don't have specific expertise, and I don't even know, honestly, all of the cards that have been released that way by heart. And I don't watch the prices over time. Personally, I'm not invested in, not super interested in them, but I do think that they're cool. But not for me at those price points. There are better options right now for me personally, but that's also just as a subjective collector. I think that, for people who really like those, I think, you can totally make a case that they should have that value, and they're extremely cool art, and they're pretty scarce and rare and hard to find. Jonathan Ramirez asks, given the increase in Wizards of the Coast sealed product premiums, is this the right time to, 1, liquidate base set boxes and first edition base set boosters to pursue high-end goals like play promos, like play promo Umbreon? 2, liquidate and buy heavy packs from WotC sets? Or 3, sit because these prices will only go higher in 5 years? Okay, so given the increase in WotC sealed product premiums, is this the right time to liquidate base set boxes and first edition base boxes? Okay. So, the honest truth is I don't have the answer to that. It's an interesting thing to discuss. Personally, I didn't really go heavy into the booster boxes because I just as a collector I prefer and enjoy PSA cards more than just having a sealed box where the cards are inside and I don't know what's inside or what they'll grade. Those sorts of things. I prefer to just have the super, rare, scarce item, either a rare and scarce card like the play promo Umbreon you mentioned here. And for those who don't know, the play promos these were cards that were given out. I talked about them in one of my Japanese videos. And I have I have this whole play promo set. I do not have the Umbreon, and I do not have the Espeon, which were the two hardest ones to get. You had to get a certain amount of points in play points, and then you were awarded these cards in Japan. And so it was hard to get that many play points to get these. So there really probably aren't that many of these cards in existence. So they're very hard to get. So I prefer those types of cards, because for a number of subjective elements, just like I like looking at that card versus the box. Other people feel very differently. They prefer the box. When we think though about just what will be the most valuable in the future, and I think that's really the heart of your question. There's really no way to predict that. You just have to, in a lot of my videos, and I would say, refer back to those videos, like, watch my booster box video, watch the video where I started talking about some of those Japanese cards. I'm going to do a trophy card video where I talk more about trophy cards, where and also I'm going to do, an exclusive Japanese promo video where I talk more about those and my opinions on those. But really, like, just for an overview, these things are all great investments and all have sort of pluses and negatives to them, and you just, so I would suggest you collect what you enjoy the most, what you like having the most, what you think other people will like having the most. So that would be my advice on that. Sorry I can't give you a more specific answer, but I don't think that there is one. Bren asks, which trophy cards do you have? Which are you pursuing? Also, how do you feel about Japanese exclusive cards such as play promos? Do you pursue those? Thanks. So I definitely I love the play promos. I do pursue them all the time. I'm always buying those. I'm always looking for those. I've been looking for like the Espeon and the Umbreon at reasonable prices since I got into the hobby. I just haven't found them at what I think is a reasonable price yet, and I'm sure now that they've gone up a lot, and probably the asking prices will go up a lot in value because everything else has gone up. So I may not never own those or not own those for a long time. We'll have to see what the market says about those. Which trophy cards do I have and which am I pursuing? So what do I want to say about this? So I'm not going to talk about what exactly I'm pursuing right now because what I tend to talk about is like themes, and I feel like I give you guys enough information on this channel to probably understand what I'm going for and what I'm in the market for, but I don't want to give you exact specifics. One, because I don't want you to I don't want to have to compete, frankly, over those items with you directly, if that's going to happen. And two, and I think even more importantly to me, I don't want you going after those exact items and then that being wrong and you being upset that you didn't go after what you thought was best and instead you went directly after what I thought was best. And I think that you need to make your own decisions around that. Which cards do I have? So, I won't go into exact specifics of what trophy cards I have. I've shown some on this channel and I'll continue to show some. I own a lot of the World's promo, stamped cards. Not everyone considers those trophy cards. Some only consider the full art cards above that, the Pikachu cards or the other trophy Pikachu cards as like technically trophy cards. I think anything that is given out to winners or participators in an event to acknowledge their achievement to have gotten into that event, and to me that includes Art Academy cards I think are trophy cards. Pikachu Illustrator I think is a trophy card. Cards that were given out to winners of art events, that's still it's the trophy to show that you've won that. So anything that is given out that isn't given out sort of randomly and is given out for a purpose and to award someone for their accomplishment within the Pokemon hobby is to me what a trophy card is. And there are very expensive, very, very expensive rare scarce trophy cards, and there are less expensive rare and scarce less expensive cards that are not as rare and scarce, but they still should be called trophy cards to me. Just my personal opinion. So those are most of my trophy cards are made up of that. I own those Art Academy cards. I have, a few other trophy cards here and there, some Japanese trophy cards and some other things. I'm planning eventually to do at some point, I don't know when. I have my cards in some different places too, but to do sort of like a tour of my collection, and I think at that point I'll show you guys more specifically what I have and what I'm working on. Barca Player Highlights asks, would it be possible that you talk about XY evolution growing in price? Sure. So this is really interesting, and I think actually can tell us a lot about the hobby right now that XY Evolutions is growing in price. So the boxes are not growing in price, to be clear. What's growing in price are the Charizards from that set are growing in price, and maybe some of the other ones, the other Mega Full Arts and stuff are growing in price. I haven't checked the Blastoise or the Venusaur, for example, but I do know that the Charizard, the Mega Charizard, kind of, it was like $50 for years, and now it jumped to $150 or so. $100 to $200, I think, was the range that people were selling it for. So, more than doubled in price. And the regular holo and the reverse holo Charizard also jumped a lot in price recently, which is that reprint, the image reprint of that iconic base set Charizard. So there are a few different points I think to touch on when we're looking at this evolution set. One, starting with that Charizard regular holo, that card is by far the hardest card to grade from that set. It has an extremely low percentage of grading a PSA 10. I don't know the percentage offhand, but it's something like, I think they're like maybe 150 roughly of those Charizards, and they're over 2,000 PSA 9. So they're about 150 or so PSA 10s and over 2,000 PSA 9s. That's a crazy difference there. I don't know of any cards, that are graded to that level with that many graded that have that few, PSA 10s to PSA 9. That's crazy. So that's pretty interesting. So that higher price for that card in PSA 10 specifically might make a lot of sense in the long run and actually might hold. That might be an interesting one. I'd be a lot more worried about the other two Charizards, the reverse holo Charizard, which isn't as difficult to grade as the regular holo, but is still pretty difficult to grade. But the Mega Charizard, full art Charizard, is very, very easy to grade. I've graded myself. I think I've probably sent in about 25 of them, and I think 24 out of 25 graded 10s. They all looked great. They all looked like 10s. I didn't open any of them, so I haven't opened a bunch from packs or anything. And these are cards, just like I've come across 25 of them just from buying collections, and all the collections I've bought have been mostly vintage because I tend to go mostly after vintage. And so even a person who isn't going after those cards as an opening packs has come across 25 of them and sold them. So, big businesses and or flippers who deal with, purely modern, might have thousands, there might be thousands of these PSA 10 candidates ungraded out there, thousands and thousands, just waiting to sort of slowly grade and then slowly sell, and people not wanting to push the pop-up too fast. So be very, very careful with that full art Mega Charizard. That is a card that I would not be surprised easily. If that card kept going up in value, I wouldn't be surprised if there were 30,000 PSA 10s, 20,000 PSA 10s to 30,000 PSA 10s in 10 years or so. If for some reason there was enough people and demand for that card that it could sustain those prices, that it would give that incentive to keep grading. The other reason is because there's so much more evolution. There's so many more evolution boxes, booster boxes still out there, sealed product, and the booster box price has not gone up. It's so inexpensive to get those boxes. It's basically the same price as it was when it first came out, a little bit higher, but not much higher. And that tells me that a few things. One, it was such a popular set and it sold so much that they just printed so much more of it than any of the other sets during that era. And so there's just a lot more left, even though it was super popular and people love opening it and people continue to love to open it. Two, it tells me that the distributors and the people who just bought it to sell it and wanted to sell it at its original price, I imagine a lot of them still have their product. And that's why you're seeing them willing to list for $100 on eBay right now, $110 on eBay. So you have all of, so we need to get, before we can see rises in that booster box price, all of that needs to be sold. And there's a ton of it. And there's a ton of people who just want to sell their product of that before we get to the people who are, all the people who are holding the product and not even listing the product and are hoping it's going to go up and believe it'll go up. So there's going to be a lot more of that, of those cards, of all these PSA cards and of those booster boxes in supply. If the price goes up of those booster boxes, you're going to see a lot more of those booster boxes come on the market. There's like an endless supply of those things right now. No end in sight of those things in my opinion. So the most interesting one I would say, in terms of an investment perspective, for investors might be that regular holo Charizard, because it's so difficult to grade and because it's that same art as that original base set, and that continues to go way up in price. I personally wouldn't touch it, wouldn't buy it. One, it's gone up so much in price, and two, like, I just don't, like, I'd much rather have so many different Charizards than that. There's something, just because it has the same art, it isn't, it's just, I don't have that connection to that card. You know, I way prefer the base one. I prefer the base set 2 one. I prefer the legendary one. There's so many of that art that I would rather have. I'd rather have a lower grade of the base set one. Have the original, you know, have my childhood card in a 5 or 6, you know, and for the price I think this one's going for, you could probably get it in like a 7, maybe a 7, maybe even 8 right now. I'm not sure exactly, you know, exactly what the prices are, but maybe a 7, PSA 7 of the base set, or this PSA 10. And I would just rather have that childhood one, even if there aren't that many of this new one in PSA 10, because to me there's just nothing special about having that XY Evolutions other than having that art. And I don't really care that it's a very hard card to grade, personally, because to me, I just don't have that much of a connection to that card. So going on and on a little bit there, but, you know, I will end it there. You know, last thing I'll say in this video, you know, and with all the opinions I shared, you know, these are all opinions. Nobody can predict accurately the prices of these things and what the market is going to do. There are just too many factors to take into account. I hope that my opinions can help guide you guys and help you at least think critically about what you're doing and why you're doing it, and what you enjoy and what other people are going to likely enjoy and what's going to be valuable in the long term. And that can help you have a better experience. At the end of the day, you know, I hope everyone who's engaging in these videos and doing this is doing this because it's fun. Collecting and investing in Pokemon hopefully is fun for you. You have a love of these cards. You have a connection to your childhood of these cards, or you're discovering them now and you're falling in love with them now, and for the first time maybe. And in that way, you're guaranteed to have a good time as you go along. And this channel is just going to help guide you to make those smart financial purchases so that you can, you know, get that collection that you want and have those cards that you can cherish and enjoy, and can be a financial safety net for you, hopefully, you know, if you ever need it in your life, you know, as part of retirement, you know, as part of your kid's future, these sorts of things. So thank you all so much again for watching. We have, you know, this great interview coming up. You know, hopefully in a few days we'll have that out to you guys. I have a lot more videos planned on all sorts of subjects and tips and tricks and things that I've learned, you know, from doing this the last 3 or 4 years, pretty much pretty much every day. So thank you for the continued support and watching, and I'll talk to you all again soon. Take care.